When the internet began, bulletin board services, or BBS, became the first online communities of the so-called information superhighway. Using their phone lines, people logged in from all over America to talk about sports, games, movies, and on one BBS in particular, share their ghost stories. Over time, those communities all went dark, except for one lone server that continues to operate somewhere in an unknown part of Pennsylvania's Rust Belt. A relic of the 1990s, veiled in mystery, it is a digital archive of humanity's strangest encounters with the unknown, as told by the people who experienced them. My name is Brandon Schexnayder, and you are listening to Fear Daily.
Subject: My little sister. User: Recovering417. Posted January 22nd, 1997.
Look, I know after everything I've done in life, no one should take my word for shit. Nah, I have put enough drugs in my body for 11 lifetimes and shot enough shit in my veins on a random Tuesday to tranquilize a goddamn elephant for weeks. I've betrayed every single human I've ever loved, but now that I've gotten clean, hauled myself off the street, and started really getting into recovery, it's become very clear. Whatever demons inside of me I've been trying to run from all of these years all started that day when Stephanie came home. She was 9 when she disappeared. 2 whole weeks gone without a trace, without a witness, without a single shred of evidence that could explain how a little girl could just vanish from our neighborhood like that. My parents were broken people by the time the cops found her on the other side of town. She was sitting on a rusted seesaw in a busted old playground nobody took their kids to anymore, her little legs dangling, humming to herself like nothing had happened. Well, when they asked her where she'd been all this time, she just blinked up at them and said, "Here." Like she never left. I remember the police officer, a woman with tired eyes and a face like weathered leather, told my parents about how when she knelt down in front of my sister and tried to coax more answers out of her, she got nothing. "Sweetheart, do you remember who took you?" Apparently, Stephanie just shook her head. "Nobody took me. I was just waiting." Waiting for what? Stephanie had tilted her head at the officer, then said simply, "For him." When the officer asked who him was, she told her simply, "Bobby. I'm here for Bobby." That is me. Hearing that story was the first time I remember the feeling of my stomach dropping. Like something deep in my bones knew even then that whatever came back that day was not my sister, was not the little girl I grew up with, but my parents were just grateful. They hugged her, they sobbed, they thanked the cops, thanked God, thanked every unseen force in the universe that their baby girl was back, and who could blame them? As for the police, they did what they always do when they had nothing. Shrugged their shoulders, filled out their paperwork, and left us with what they called a miracle. That night, as she sat across from me at the dinner table, eating mashed potatoes with a methodical slowness, she smiled at me. I couldn't eat. The thing is, nobody else noticed anything wrong. They told themselves it was trauma, that maybe she had amnesia, or that she'd been too scared to talk about what had really happened. She just needs time, my mom kept saying. She'll remember when she's ready. But I knew. I felt it. That smile was not my little sister's smile, because Stephanie, the real Stephanie, had a chipped front tooth when she'd fallen off her bike the summer before. The girl who came back didn't. Because Stephanie, my Stephanie, used to suck her thumb when she was nervous, but this girl sat perfectly still. Because my sister was left-handed, and this girl picked up her fork with her right hand and ate as if she'd been given lessons from fucking Emily Post herself. When I told my mom, she sighed like she was exhausted with me. Baby, stress can do things to the brain. Maybe you're just remembering wrong. Remembering wrong? Fuck that. There wasn't anything wrong with me. I knew this wasn't my sister, and no amount of gaslighting would make me feel otherwise. And as time passed, that awareness that someone was living in our house that wasn't supposed to be there only made me more and more certain. Mostly, it was the way she watched me. Not just casual glances. Not the way a little sister looks up to her big brother. No, it was a study. Observation. Like I was some kind of puzzle she was trying to put together. Like an alien or some shit trying to figure out how to be human. But then, there was the humming. The first night, I heard it through the wall we shared. Soft, gentle, like a lullaby. I thought maybe she was just trying to comfort herself. Maybe she was having trouble sleeping, but as the days passed, it got louder, stranger. One night, I put my ear against the wall and listened. It wasn't just humming anymore. Now, it was murmuring. Not words exactly, but layered voices, like there were 2, 3, 4 Stephanies whispering under that breathy tune. I tried to record it on my Walkman. I let the tape roll for an hour, then played it back. Nothing. Well, no, not nothing. Static. And underneath that static, when I turned the volume all the way up, I could hear breathing, shallow and close, like someone was right there, pressed up against the speaker, waiting for me to listen. The next morning, I checked Stephanie's room while she was downstairs in the kitchen, opened her closet, and looked under the bed, searching for I don't know what, but something was in there. She was hiding something, and I finally felt it before I saw it. Pressed into the drywall at the back of her closet were tiny, jagged fingernail marks. Not scratches, words. Only one word, though, carved over and over. Help. I ran out of her room so fast I nearly tripped. At the breakfast table, she was eating pancakes, drowning them in syrup, and she saw me staring and smiled, her lips sticky and sweet. "Are you okay?" she asked. "Are you okay?" I shot back, too sharp and too obvious. Her expression didn't change. She swallowed a bite of pancake. Why wouldn't I be? I didn't answer, but after that, I spent as little time possible with my sister. I never really figured out what happened to her, what happened to my Stephanie. As we got older, she stopped watching me so much, stopped humming at night. We went to separate high schools and then separate lives, and I started getting fucked up sophomore year and checked out anyway. I just disappeared mentally, and now I haven't spoken to her in years, but still, to this day, I truly wonder who came home with the police so many years ago, and I still don't know where the fuck is my little sister.
Subject: Inheritance, Part 1. User: Unexpected Fly. Posted April 18th, 1996.
Can you believe it? Fran and I have been married for 20 years now. It's a long time to share a life, a house, a bed, but when I met her, she was just a girl, huddled in the back of the band room, crying. I remember the way she wiped her nose on her sleeve, embarrassed, said it was her mom. She said she was crazy, that she talked to people who weren't there, that sometimes she'd just stop mid-sentence and stare into a corner of the room, her face going slack with fear. She tells me I don't see what I think I see, Fran whispered. She says I'm the one who's wrong. Well, I told her that wasn't fair. I told her she deserved better. Now, whether or not I was trying to be a gentleman or was just a shithead teen trying to hook up, I don't remember, but somehow it worked out either way, and I fell hard, fast. Here we are, 20 years later. As for Fran's mom, well, she died in her armchair back in October, alone. We hadn't seen her in months. Not since Fran had started screening her calls, letting them pile up unheard on the answering machine. When the coroner called, she went pale. I held her, told her it was okay, told her we'd take care of everything. But what I didn't say was that I'd do it alone. For her. She couldn't go back there. I could see it in her face, the way her hands clenched in her lap when we drove past that old neighborhood, how she'd refused to turn her head toward the house. The grief in her wasn't just sadness. It was something deeper, something rotten, something afraid. So I went alone. The house smelled stale when I stepped inside, like old wood, dry air, the faintest trace of that old lady perfume lingering in the hallway. I set my box of garbage bags on the counter and rolled up my sleeves. It was slow work. Most of it went in piles, donate, throw away, keep for Fran. I tried not to look at the photographs. I tried not to pay attention to the dark windows, the way the shadows stretched unnaturally across the carpet, even though the sun was still out. But then I heard the voice, soft, a murmur. I froze. It came from the next room. I took a slow step into the hallway. The bedroom door was open. The bed was made, her vanity cluttered with little glass perfume bottles just the way she left it. No one was there. I swallowed hard. How settling, I thought to myself. Maybe a neighbor outside, a radio on too loud. Then he's here. A woman's voice, low, amused. Cold air rippled across my skin. I turned too fast, almost losing my footing. The closet door was open a crack, darkness beyond. Nothing was there. I let out a breath. I was too tense. I needed to finish up and get my ass home, but I was only halfway down the hallway when I saw the woman standing in the kitchen. I stopped dead. She stood by the sink, hands folded neatly in front of her, a nightgown clung to her thin frame, her long gray hair spilling over her shoulders, her lips twitched into a small, pleased smile. "You shouldn't be here," she said. I choked on my own breath. I knew her face. I had seen it in pictures across dinner tables at our wedding. Fran's mother. I clenched my jaw, squeezed my eyes shut, and when I opened them, gone. Just empty air where she had stood. I backed out of the kitchen, hands shaking. My throat was tight. Stress, that's all it was. Stress mixed with some grief for my wife and a little lack of sleep. My mind was clearly playing tricks on me, but then something else moved at the end of the hallway. I turned, heart hammering, a figure, tall, lean. I knew that face. My stomach dropped. It was Fran's father. I had only ever seen him in old pictures from back before he left, before he disappeared and never came back. I had resented this man my entire life for what he did to my beautiful bride, and now there he was in front of me, the grandfather of my children, standing in the doorway, his expression blank, his head cocked slightly like he was listening for something. "She told you, didn't she?" His voice was rough, wrong. "Told you not to believe what you see." My breath came in sharp bursts. He took a slow step forward. I stumbled back. My shoulder hit the wall. The whole house seemed wrong now. Tilted, too dark, too full. Something was moving in the corner of my vision, shifting, whispering, not just him, not just her. And when I turned, I saw it. There were others, figures in the hall, in the living room. They lingered in the doorways. Some were barely more than shadows, shapes pressed against the walls, blending into the dark. Their mouths moved silent. My chest clenched. "Fran," I whispered. The figures stirred. My knees went weak. Something cold brushed my arm, sending a chill down my spine. I turned and ran. It didn't stop to grab a thing, didn't stop to shut off the lights, just bolted for the front door, yanked it open, and threw myself into the yard. The air outside was too warm, too thick, but it was real. I didn't look back. I didn't stop driving until I pulled into our driveway, shaking, sick, still tasting that house on my breath. Fran was waiting inside, curled up on the couch, her eyes rimmed red. She looked up at me and frowned. "You okay?" I sat beside her. My hands were freezing. She leaned into me tired. "You were there all day." I didn't answer, but she pulled my arm around her and closed her eyes. She must have felt the tension in my body. "Hey, are you okay?" I swallowed. I thought of the shadows pressed against the walls, the voices, the way her mother had smiled at me like she knew something I didn't. "Yeah, I'm fine, just tired." I lied. She let out a small breath, curling closer. I kissed her hair. The house was still out there, still waiting, still full. But I was here. "Baby, thank you for dealing with everything you do," she whispered, stroking my arm with her hand. "I don't know if I could ever go back to that house after everything that happened there." I took a deep breath. "So, Fran, maybe now isn't the right time for this, but..." I paused, trying to muster up the courage to ask, "What actually happened to your father?" She pulled back instantly, her sweet, gentle voice turning to pain. He just, she stuttered. I don't know. I don't want to talk about it. Why are you asking this now? There was just stuff at your mom's that I didn't expect to find. I lied. Okay, she sighed. Look, it's really fucked up. You know how she was, but can we just talk about this tomorrow?
Fear Daily is an independent podcast hosted by Brandon Schexnayder and written by Brennan Storr, with Joanna Smith serving as the consulting editor, audio production by Rachel Boyd, and sound design by Southern Gothic Media. This podcast is a work of fiction. Names, characters, places, and incidents are either products of the author's imagination or are used fictitiously. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, or to real events or locations, is entirely coincidental. Ad-free versions of Fear Daily are available now on your favorite podcast apps. For more information, visit feardaily.com. But move fast, before the server goes offline.